Hey everyone, thank you so much for coming to our session today to learn about a simple framework for delivering a great client experience. My name is Andrew, and I'm one of the product designers at Clio, and I'm in charge of some of the core features in Clio Manage, like documents and matters, to help all of you run your firm more effectively.
Hi, and my name is Dilan, and I am a researcher at Clio. And as part of being a researcher, I get to go out, interview lawyers and other firm members, and I get to learn all about them. In fact, Andrew and I conducted some user research to understand what a great client experience is like, both for the client and for the firm. It's clear to see that a great client experience matters more than ever nowadays.
So for our session today, we're going to be going over roughly 4 sections. We're going to start by understanding what client experience is, and then we'll introduce the framework, which is tied to our understanding of client experience. Then we're going to be running through an example of how to use the framework, along with a quick overview of how Clio features can help all of you deliver a better client experience and help all of you run your firm more effectively. And then we'll wrap it all up at the end. So to start, let's talk about what client experience is.
But before we get into that, let's take a quick little detour. If ClioCon had happened 10 years ago, you would have arrived to the San Diego airport and you would have waited in a line, maybe such as this one, for about 20 minutes to find a cab that will take you to your hotel. In fact, this is what it looks like in Vancouver nowadays. This is a pretty recent photo. Don't tell me about it. But let's move on to the next slide. Then nowadays, in San Diego airport, when you arrived on Sunday, you probably could have pulled up your phone because there's something called ride-sharing app. And in a matter of a few minutes and a few clicks, you can find a cab that will take you to your hotel. But this isn't a nice to have anymore. Consumers and clients expect this kind of experience as a baseline. So if an organization wants to thrive, they have to serve their customers the way they expect to be served.
So, bringing it back to legal client experience, in the 2018 Legal Trends report, we learned that the criteria consumers are looking for are at odds with how firms are delivering their services today. And then in the 2019 Legal Trends report, as you've heard from Jack yesterday, we got even more specific with one of these criteria. We learned that 79% of consumers expect a response within 24 hours, or else the firm won't be hired. Now, with lots of convenience services all around us every single day, like meal prepping, ride sharing, food delivery, which is all around convenience. It's no wonder that consumers or clients are developing this expectation centered around convenience and immediacy. And it's no wonder that firms are feeling this pressure to deliver on this convenience as well. So far we talked about ride sharing as an example, clients' expectation of convenience. Let's turn our attention to what client experience actually is. Now, if you just Googled legal client experience, you probably get a definition that looks something like this. It is where all the interactions your client has with your firm from the beginning to the end of the matter. Now, while this definition is simple, there's 2 problems with it. It's not very actionable because it doesn't point to any outcomes. Now, when we think of a great legal client experience, we typically think of happier clients that will refer more clients to you, which will help all of your firms gain more revenue. So with those 3 sort of effects in mind, let's revisit what a great legal client experience is, and we want to present a new definition of a great legal client experience. A great legal client experience in this new definition is where every interactions you have with your client meets their expectations while helping all of your firms run more effectively. This definition is much more effective because it points to 2 very specific outcomes: meeting clients' expectation and helping the firm run more effectively. It is much more actionable out of these outcomes. Now, this dual focus on both the firm and the client is important because it is your firm's process that underpins your client's experience.
Let's take it back to the ride-sharing app. There was a passenger who can find a driver very easily, and there's a driver who can find a passenger very easily. As an outcome of this client experience, this great client experience, they can find each other quickly and effectively.
So with this new definition in mind of focusing both on the client and the firm, let's move on to the framework I'd like to be imparting to all of you today. The framework we'll be teaching today is called a client journey map. This is a tool that the user experience discipline or profession uses to understand how different people experiences a service or a process over time. And this is a tool that we use at Clio as well to understand how all of you bring your clients from the beginning to the end of the matter so we can deliver better features for all of you. Now, we want to provide this tool for all of you so that you can deliver a better client experience for your client.
It's a very simple framework that consists of a timeline that goes from point A to point B.
In our example here, we're going to use point A as client realizing they need legal help.
And point B, reaching a resolution.
The idea here is to make your client experience from something that is intangible to something that is tangible by capping this timeline with a point A to point B. This timeline can be as wide as you want, so beginning, end of a matter, or it can be as granular and specific as you need, like just intake, for example. And we'll go into how we can make the client experience tangible for you to manipulate in just a few slides.
So first, go out and list out every single step your client takes that will take them from point A to point B. And in this situation, the point A is client realizing they need legal help, to point B, reaching a resolution. But to figure out what each of these steps are, you can go and talk to your clients throughout any step of the way. You can also talk to your client-facing firm members. They're out there, they're talking to your clients, and they're aware of a lot of these things. When you're talking to your clients, though, keep in mind that a lot of times people do tend to want to please other people. So if you ask them questions like, hey, would you give me a referral to your friends and family, they might say yes, but this is not going to help you improve the client's experience, which is what you want to be doing here. So instead, you can ask them questions like, what was the most challenging part of your experience? Getting from realizing that you needed legal help to finding me, or throughout the entire experience. You can ask them, what was the most frustrating points in this section of your experience? Make sure you dig into their answers and ask them why, so you can get deeper into what can be improved here. Now, after having each of these steps, write them on one card at a time. And these cards might be a sticky note, where you put them all on a wall or in a window, or a cell in an Excel sheet where every single cell is an action that your client takes. So this looks pretty cool, but let's get later to how this exactly looks for you.
Awesome. So what we have on the screen here, we just have white boxes to represent description of the client experience. So in the next slide here, where we zoom into the beginning of this framework, where client realizing they need legal help, some of these notes, post-it notes, or a cell in an Excel sheet could contain simple phrases that is descriptive and clear, such as client asking for help from their family, finding your firm on Google, and then reaching out over a web form, and then waiting.
When you ask your clients about what their challenges and frustrations were, you'll undoubtedly notice that they're bringing up a lot of points where their expectations were not being met. Make sure you highlight these pain points, and we're going to call them pain points, your client's pain points. These are important to highlight because they are what will improve your client's experience. And once you have your pain points, now it's time to get granular on the firm's side. What's happening on the firm's end? A lot of times you'll realize that when your client is struggling, your firm has some challenges as well. It's not just the clients.
So taking this example on the screen here, where the client's pain point might be unsure about how to fill in their intake form. And from out of there, what ends up happening could be that the client is unsure about how to fill in these forms, and they procrastinate. Now let's take a look at the firm side. On the firm side, the firm might have to follow up over email to chase the client, or even over the phone to make sure that they are getting the forms done so they can move the case forward. The firm might then have to send, again, another stack of PDF for this client to fill in these forms, just chase them again. But ultimately, all of these efforts amount to feeling like time is wasted from chasing the client.
Okay. And then do the same on every single pain point that you identified before. what's happening on the firm side as well. And once you have both sides of the picture established, the firm side and the client side, now we can actually take some steps to address these pain points and improve that client's experience.
With both sides of the framework established, some of these changes can be extremely simple because you're just listing out client experience and then the process that underpins it. It could be as simple as just setting up a reminder for your paralegal to follow up with your client every Monday, or it could even just be a whiteboard in your office where you keep track of basic but key information about your client. Oops. Now, we recognize that as you work on this framework, as you identify both the client experience and the firm's process behind these pain points, some of the changes might be incredibly simple, like the two that I just talked about, while other changes may not be as straightforward. In those cases, know that Clio has a series of features to help all of you run more effectively and deliver an even better client experience.
So, in the next section of our talk, we're going to use the framework that we just talked about to demonstrate how a few of Clio's features can also help you address some of the most common pain points that you'll realize when you talk to your clients. From our research that we've conducted with clients and firms, we noticed that there's 3 main pain points that clients do tend to struggle with.
These 3 pain points that we've noticed are intake, collaborating with the attorney, and payments.
So, to make this process come alive, let's work through kind of a real-life scenario of a client and an attorney working together.
I'm going to be speaking on behalf of the client's perspective.
And I'll speak on the lawyer and the firm's side. So the first pain point, as we mentioned, was intake. So this is when your client realizes they need help to when they retain a lawyer.
Now, from the client's perspective, typically at the beginning of a matter or a legal situation, they're very likely to be distressed. Some scenarios might be more personal, other scenarios might be more transactional, but either way, there is a pressure that's causing some stress for the client. From this point, they will likely seek out friends, family for referrals about who to talk to, whether that's a lawyer or a firm. And then from there, they will probably call up some of the contacts that they received. And then the next step, or the first step of engaging with a law firm, is likely intake forms. And this is where it can be challenging for the client. I'm going to mark this as a pain point, and we'll go into some of these challenges in just a second. With intake forms, while some forms can be thinner, oftentimes intake forms can be lengthy. The information requested on there may be ambiguous, or the information can be difficult to access or acquire for the client. And as a result, like the initial example I was talking about, with all these challenges with the intake forms, client might be procrastinating.
So, as the firm, you can't move on. You need the client to come in and fill out these intake forms. We have just figured out the first pain point of the client. And now, it's time to get more granular on the firm side. For the side of the firm, you sent your client their intake form. Still no word from the client. You have to follow up. And then you followed up through email and said, hey, can you sign, scan, and send me this form? But still nothing. And you keep on following up with your client. Recognizing that getting clients to fill out forms can be a challenge, you can turn to a Clio feature to help you alleviate some of these problems. With Clio Grow's intake forms, you can make intake simple for clients, firms, the paralegal, the lawyer, all alike. As you can see here, we have a client's divorce intake case where from the intake checklist, we can actually send any kind of relevant forms to the client to fill. That's where it is.
And then from the client's perspective, client will receive a very clearly labeled email about exactly what they need to do. And once they open up this email, they'll then be able to open up this form that is very akin to a lot of the sign-up forms they're already comfortable and used to in all other services they use, whether that's meal prepping or ride sharing. And then from there, they'll be able to provide information very quickly and easily. And if there are any ambiguity with the information requested, we can provide additional tooltips so clients can self-serve themselves through this process. And then at the end of the form, at the moment where client clicks submit, that information does not need to be hand-delivered to a firm or faxed, scanned, or sent via email. This information gets automatically updated inside the firm's Clio Grow account.
And when the client fills out the form, the firm doesn't have to flip through forms and enter one by one into Clio Manage. We can push the data from Clio Grow to Clio Manage in a few clicks.
Awesome. With Clio Grow's intake form now in place in the client experience, we have now mitigated the challenge of client taking a long time of filling out forms. Instead of having them print out a form, fill it out, or try and fill in the form via Preview or Adobe Acrobat, client can now fill in these forms akin to how they would sign up for other services that are really, really convenient, like Netflix or even Amazon. And it also mitigates the problem of the firm having to chase the client because all that information isn't delivered in physical form. All that information is transported electronically right into the Clio account so that that information is ready to be used once the client has hired the lawyer.
So now that we've solved the first pain point, it's time to get to the second most common pain point: collaboration with the attorney. This is when the client has retained the lawyer and it will take them to point B, which is moving the case forward.
Again, from the client's perspective, after going through intake, now the formal collaboration relationship begins. This relationship typically begins by a major information or document request, typically via email. And then after that, the paralegal at the firm might request even more documents to make sure the case is moving forward nicely so that the firm has the documents, the information they need to work with. But then at that point, clients are often distressed. The case may just be a sliver in the many things they care about in life, and they're wondering, hey, where is my case at? What do I need to do to move it forward? And then at that point, if they want to find out where the case is at, they turn to their email inbox. And we know that this idea of inbox zero is mythical for many clients. So in order for them to figure out where their case is at, they have to dig through sometimes hundreds, thousands, 10,000s of emails to figure out, hey, what did my lawyer ask me to do? And we're going to mark this as our second pain point, where the client is confused about how they should move the case forward.
Great, so we found a second pain point. Now it's time to get granular on the firm side. So for the firm, you shared an affidavit to your client to review. And no word from them. There's a lot of documents flying around at this point, as you know. Have we sent the child support documents yet? Well, what do we need to do? Let's go through the email. Let's see what the instructions are that we have already shared with the client. There's a lot of back and forth at this point, and we don't know what we've shared. So I have to send my documents again with my client because I have to have this affidavit review, and we can't move on without it. Recognizing this as our second pain point, we can also turn to another Clio feature to help alleviate for this problem. With Clio Connect, we can secure communications and of all of our messages, documents, all in one place. As you can see here, this is the client's case where I can share a list of outstanding tasks with the client, and both the client and the firm knows exactly what there's left to do and what's shared.
And then on the client's perspective, again, I receive a very clearly labeled email asking what I need to do to move the case forward. Once I pop the email open, I will then sign in to the client portal with my login and password, and I'll be able to see a list of the outstanding tasks that I need to complete, whether that's a document that I need to upload or a piece of information that I need to provide. Now, instead of going through my inbox with hundreds or thousands of emails, I now have one central place that I can access information about my case, but also at the same time, and more importantly, secure.
Great, so let's get back to the framework one more time. We recognized a second pain point of how hard it is for clients to collaborate with attorneys, and we turned to a Clio feature, Clio Connect, to help solve for this problem. And this way, we were able to keep communications and documents secure together in one place. So let's move to the third and final pain point that's super common for clients. It's paying the bill. A lot of times, clients have problems after reaching a resolution, and that's paying the lawyer.
So after a resolution has been reached, everything is great. Now comes the bill. The bill could typically come in the form of a PDF where they will look at the amount they're owed, and then the next step that they're asked to do is drop off a check at the office. Now, for some clients, that's possible if they live right next door to their lawyer, but most of the time, client needs to travel further away, especially if you're dealing with more rural clients. So asking them to pay in person can be a time sink. At that point, it's challenging because, again, back to this idea that clients are living with a lot of convenient services, online payment is incredibly common.
And now we have found a final third pain point. And what do we do now? Firm side. It's time to get granular on the firm side. So what did the firm do? They had to send a bill, they have to draft, finalize, share the bill, and they need the client to come in and give them a check. But as you all probably know, you're gonna have to chase a lot of your clients to come in and give you the payment.
And not because clients don't want to pay. I'm sure they want to pay. It's just that the barrier for payment can be difficult if it is required to pay in person.
So recognizing this as a final pain point, we can turn to another Clio feature to help fix this problem. With Clio payments, payments are accessible to clients just because it's easy to pay with a credit card from their email. As you can see here, for the firm side, I can select 50 different invoices and share it with 50 different clients in a few clicks.
Now, again, let's look over on the client side. As the client, again, I'll receive a very clearly labeled email. And when I pop the email open, I'll be able to see that, hey, this is an email from my law firm because the name is attached on there along with the exact amount that I'm aware of. And then from there, there is a call to action button that says pay online now. And as the client, I'll be able to click it and be brought to a payment form. Again, very similar to the different services we use like Amazon or even Shopify, where you can provide personal information, payment information, and on click, the client would have just been able to pay for their legal services like their utility bills, like their phone bills online.
And in fact, the Legal Trends report found that 57% of bills that are shared online are paid on the same exact day that they're shared, just because it's so simple for clients to pay online. And also, after my bill is shared, my client pays it, and I get a notification as a lawyer that it's paid online and there's nothing else to do. The client and matter ledger updated automatically. So going back to the framework one last time, I recognized a pain point of how hard it is for clients to have to go out of their homes and send in a check or give a check and pay their bill. And with Clio Payments, I was able to make payment accessible and make it easy for clients to pay online with a credit card and improve the client experience.
And now with payment being incredibly simple and with the two other pain points mitigated by Clio features, having gone through this case in such a simple way, the client is much more likely to refer more friends or family that might be going through a similar situation to the law firm and ultimately helping the firm succeed this way.
And that's what we all want, more referrals. But going through this flow of intake, collaboration, and payment, this framework showed us how we can identify pain points of clients. It also helps us clarify the firm's process, but we also saw how a few of Clio's features can help us improve the client's experience based on some of the most common pain points. And we can use Clio Grow, Clio Connect, and Clio Payments for these. So let's look at a few tips that will help us improve this framework, the usage of this framework.
So the first tip we have is make sure you talk with your clients to understand what their experience is like. Dig deep, ask the why questions, ask the how questions to understand what they're struggling with, what expectations are being met, what expectations aren't being met. Now, we understand that talking with clients may not always be easy and accessible, so the second best option, not a replacement, is to talk with your firm members who frequently interact with clients. Understand the client's experience from a second-hand perspective so that you can improve upon it.
Second is be scrappy. A lot of these slides were created by Andrew, and they look beautiful, so this framework looks pretty difficult, but it doesn't have to be this hard. You can just grab a few Post-its, run to a wall, and post them, or on a window. Or you can even use an Excel sheet where every single cell on this sheet is an action that your client takes every step of the way. And when you talk to your clients, you ask them what were your challenges and your frustrations, and you can use the answer to these to color code how much of a pain point, how strong of a pain point there is for your clients. And you can use these colors to prioritize your improvements accordingly.
Exactly. And so far, we talked about talking to your clients so you understand what to write in these notes. Then you lay it out from the point A to point B. Once you've done that, then you go ahead and list out the firm's process behind each pain point, and you've got a framework on the wall. Fantastic. But the last tip we have, perhaps the most important tip we have, is make sure you use the framework. Once you've made it, don't just leave it on the wall, even though it looked really pretty. Use it to drive conversations. Use it to drive changes. The value of this framework is out of learning about both the client side and the firm side, it is the decisions that are made from this realization, this understanding that will help drive your firm to run more effectively and help all of you deliver a better client experience. So to wrap up our talk today, I want to bring us back to this definition of a great legal client experience. Because our framework that we just introduced, the client journey map, hooks directly to this definition. Now, this first part of the definition around every interaction you have with your clients meets their expectation, that is exemplified by how the framework lists out a point A to point B, and then you would list out every single step the client takes to go from this point A to point B. We understand the client's expectation by listing out all the different steps that they take to go from these 2 points and identifying where expectations are being met, like a normal step, and where expectations aren't being met, exemplified by a pain point. And then from there, we move on to the second part of this definition while helping your firm run more effectively. With the pain point established and identified, then you look at your firm's process. Figure out what your firm is doing and understand what the firm is doing might be impacting the client pain point or what the client pain point might be impacting the firm's process. And then from there, then you can start to get a much better holistic both-side understanding of what's happening with the firm, what's happening with the client, so that you can make informed decisions to improve how your firm works. And know that not every single change out of this framework is easily solvable by just post-it notes, whiteboards. Typically, they will be. But Clio has a series of features to help all of you run more effectively and deliver a better client experience. Now, this definition and the framework we taught all of you today all points to this idea of being a client-centered law firm.
And being a client-centered law firm takes more than a 30-minute talk. Unfortunately, we can't involve everything into it. But if you want to learn more, you can pre-order Jack's book, The Client-Centered Law Firm, right outside. And I hear you can win socks as well as be entered into a draw of an iPad. So that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming to our session today. And if you have any questions, we don't have time right now. Find us inside Clio Lab. We're right beside Matters and Communications.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.